Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Show. And we have a special guest all the way from Arizona, a comedian I met a couple of years down in San Diego at a clean comedy conference, and he's on the Maurice Brown Show today. He's a regular feature at Rick Bronson's House of Comedy and Laughs Unlimited Comedy Club and Lounge, a former elementary school teacher. Jack's life changed when he lost his father to suicide. Earning a paycheck was no longer enough. He wanted to make a difference and make people laugh every day. He has appeared in numerous comedy festivals as one part of the Arizona-based Broken Drift Productions team. He is also the co-executive producer of Big Pine Comedy Festival and producer of the Cactus Comedy Classic and 40/40 Fest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show the very funny and talented Jack Galvin. What's up, Jack? How are you, bro?
That was an amazing intro. Thank you so much, Maurice. I appreciate that.
Yes,
that was great. How could you be bad after that?
Well, I'll tell you, you deserve it, man. I love your involvement in comedy. Like I said, we met, I think it was I want to say it was 2016 in San Diego at the Clean Comedy Conference that was run by Maria Herman and Tony Calabrese. That was just an awesome experience, getting an opportunity to meet Jimmy Brogan and Eddie Brill. Man, that was a treat for us, wasn't it?
Oh, I mean, it's still something that I talk about today, where a lot of those, it wasn't even the shows. It was just the stuff that we do during the day where we'd have like Eddie Brill or these guys just talk to us and watch a few minutes of our stuff on stage and kind of critique it. I mean, it was still something I talk about to this day quite a bit.
It was awesome. You're right, man. Just getting the critique. I mean, from guys like Eddie Brill, who was the former booker for David Letterman's show, going all the way back to NBC even, I believe. He was with David for a long time. And then seeing Jimmy Brogan, a real pro, go to work. I've never seen anyone that could stand there for a solid hour and do crowd work and kill. And he was non-offensive.
Yeah, I mean, completely clean. Being able to, that was one of the highlights right there, was getting to watch him on stage, talk to us about what he does and then actually go on stage and then show us what he does, because I had never seen him live and it was unbelievable.
So it was unbelievable. The comedy scene, though, in Arizona, where you're based, what's going on out there in Arizona with the outdoor shows or just comedy in general? Are they slowly starting to kind of come back to the norm?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say that all the major comedy clubs are up and running now, for sure, at a limited capacity. We have Stand Up Live and Tempe Improv, who took most of the summer off, even though I think they could have had shows. I think it was going to be too expensive for them to try, so they just didn't. I think they started back up in September-ish. And then House of Comedy has been doing shows since June, if I'm correct, and they've been doing that. But now we lost, I think, one of our B rooms is now no longer. The Comedy Spot has closed, so that will not be. And that was one of the first rooms I really got to host and to do, was like a small 80-seater, low ceilings, just has that comedy club feel. So it's sad that that's gone, because that was really a great room when it shined. But yeah, all the comedy clubs are back up and running. They're still doing drive-in shows. That was kind of a big thing out here, because we do have a drive-in.
Okay. But
it was too hot in the summer to do outside stuff. I mean, when it's 115 during the day and it's 101 at 9 o'clock at night, it's hard to do something at night. So not a lot of outdoor stuff, believe it or not.
Yeah. They say it's really hot out there in Arizona, but it's a dry heat. I don't know what that means.
I mean, it is better than like a Florida where you're sweating constantly. It's definitely nicer, but still not nice enough to sit through a comedy show outside.
Okay. I don't know if I want to experience that, man. People go, it's 115. It's 115. But anyway, yeah, that's amazing, dude. Yeah, I would imagine it's difficult because of the heat to be doing shows outside. Have you tried shows on the virtual platform?
I have actually not done stand-up since a week before COVID hit. Because I live with Hillary Hudson, who is the main brain behind a lot of the things we do, and my partner in business, and she's very high risk, got a lot of autoimmune diseases, and her kids do as well. So we've been really, you know, staying safe and social distancing a lot since the beginning. But I have helped produce a lot of virtual shows, so I feel like I know a little bit about it. I just don't know how to do stand up in front of it.
I've done a few Zoom shows stand up wise, and I don't really count it because it's not stand up. So, but I have tried it. It is not that bad because you're looking at a laptop of faces, so there is some interaction, and it's not so bad for a substitute or a stopgap. Short of being on a live stage. So I've done that a few times. But you know, it really doesn't do it for me. I want to be back out there, and I don't want to be in a social distanced crowd either, because that's what they're doing right now, outdoors. And you know, you have to do what you have to do. I'm going to go to Miami in a few weeks and get on stage for the first time after, you know, since March. So that I'm pretty excited about that. So
my goal is by January. I want to be back on stage by January. That's kind of what I talked to her about. So that's my goal.
Have you been out to San Diego since we left and done some comedy?
So I know you said I'm all the way from Arizona, which is my home base, but I'm actually in San Diego right now.
Oh, okay.
Hillary has a house on Mission Beach, so we spend a couple weeks here. Or she does a month. I spend about 5 days here a month. My son's in Phoenix, so I spend as much time as I can in Phoenix because that's also home. But I do get to come out here every once in a while and work on things, which doesn't. It's not terrible.
You do get a chance still. Well, the COVID-19 shut everything down. I was about to say you get a chance still to hook up with people like Lisa Gilbert and Brian April and Tony Calabrese, Maria Herman.
I mean, I talked to him. I probably talked to Brandon more than most because he's kind of going on this weight loss journey, which I'm kind of going on myself and getting healthier. So I talk to him every once in a while. But yeah, I mean, we drive out here, but I don't hang with anybody. I mean, that's still kind of our thing. We don't really hang yet.
Well, it's difficult times, and I totally understand. Jack, tell us a little bit about how you use comedy to make a difference.
So I mean, that's been the thing for me from the get-go is I talk about my father a lot and how I lost him to suicide. That's a big part of why I got into comedy. That was the thing that him and I always talked about. Since I was young, 18 years old, even before that, maybe in high school, my dad always wanted to do stand-up.
Wow.
And he was so much funnier than I'll ever be. But he just never had that. We didn't know what it was. Our whole thing was like, oh man, I wish I knew I could be on one night and just go to the club and be on, thinking that there wasn't work that had to be done before you go on stage, like writing and stuff like that. Cause you just don't know that until you get into it.
Exactly.
And, when I lost him, I just kind of saw how not doing the things he wanted to do affected him. So I wanted to go out there and make people feel better. I mean, I wanted to make people laugh. And I wanted to do it in a way that wasn't offensive, that wasn't dirty, because that's naturally not who I am. I mean, like I said, like you said earlier, I was a school teacher. I was a PE teacher for 11 years at a preschool, elementary school. I just wanted to help people laugh and to feel better about themselves. And that's the stuff I talked about. I talked about not liking myself, but in a funny way, picking on myself a lot, telling stories through my family, talking about being divorced and getting along with my ex-wife. I just wanted people to be able to go to a show, laugh, and feel better about themselves when they left. And that was literally it. Yeah.
And now in comedy, we know there's a lot of pain involved, Jack. Okay. Actually comedy is a violent, let's see. Yeah, it's a violent undertaking, because when you talk about bombing, you talk about killing, You talk about slaying. There's so many violent words that are used to describe comedy, and some of those words are good, and some of them are not so good. Bombing being one of those things, and dealing with heckling and so forth.
Yeah.
But if this is not something that you love to do, dude, you can't survive in this industry because it's a brutal game. I mean, you honestly have to love stand-up comedy to do it. It's the purest art form, I believe, that that exists. And when you consider the bombing and the heckling part of it, how do you deal with hecklers on stage, Jack?
Well, when we're at a place like I'm still at, where I am a host and a feature, it's a weird place to be in as a comedian because you don't have as much control.
Yeah.
That as the headliner would. And you have to be careful. You have to tippy toe around it because you have to stop what's happening.
Yes.
Also not ruin the show. Because
thank you, Chris. Yes, exactly.
Because at the end of the day, it's the headliner's show. You're on his show or her show, and that's it. And I've had some times where it didn't go well for me. Yeah. I always try to acknowledge it. I think not acknowledging it is the wrong way to go. Like just barreling through it and like, I don't hear you, because now you're uncomfortable and the audience is also uncomfortable.
Yes.
Which is it's just never a good thing for a comedy club when the comedian and the crowd's uncomfortable. So you have to acknowledge it. And it's usually, what are you guys talking about? You know what I mean? Because they're usually talking. So now I'm trying to be as nice as possible. I say, what are you talking about? If they give me, sometimes I'll get the, oh, I'm so sorry, are we being loud? And then I'll try to do something funny with it. But sometimes they don't care, mad, and then they can do even more. And I've lost control on stage. I mean, I remember hosts are featuring for one of my favorite comedians. I can't think of his name right now, but DC Benny, and his best fan, one of his biggest fans in Phoenix, was in the front row, and during my set he talked the whole time, and I yelled pretty bad. He was also right in front of me, and I made him feel pretty. I made him feel bad to the point where he walked out of the show, and I had to apologize for DC Benny. But my goal is to acknowledge it in the nicest way possible, and then try to continue and make it flow back into a joke. Because a lot of times they're ruining a joke, so you can't go back into that joke. So you got to try to figure out how to like acknowledge it and have a setup to get you into another thing.
Well, one of the things I've learned is, number one is you have to take total command of the room. That's number one. It's like I have to dominate this room. And as you accurately stated, you don't want to be mean or aggressive or anything like that. But your aura, your presence, you and I've learned it through many fails. That's what you have to do. You got to take control of the room and minimize those folks at the table talking and running their mouth, because you don't want to be mean. I try my best to never be mean to a heckler. Once they start it up, I'll appease them and give them their 5 seconds of fame and keep on going. And I'll do my set and stick with my joke and punchline. I'll get there. But that's number one. Two, you're right. You can't ignore the elephant in the room. You know, you can't ignore it. And so you want to try to get to a place where if you have to get after them, that you don't go to the emotional level that they're on, or you don't let them take you to a negative emotion. The moment you get into a negative emotion, you just lost the room.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Especially if you're not already being negative. You know,
right.
If you're up there and you're talking about your kids went to this thing and it's lighthearted and funny, and then you go negative, you know. That's why I always felt like if you are a negative comic and you're already up there kind of being a jerk, you can deal with a heckler so much easier because you're already in that mindset and everybody's with you on that roller coaster ride. Well,
and see, there's another school of thought, and I listen, there are some comics out there, dude, you don't want to interrupt them, dude. I mean, you just don't want to do it, because if you do, I guarantee you it will probably be one of two things: the last time you'll ever do that, or the last time you'll ever go to a comedy show. Because there are guys that are prolific at demeaning you on every human level if you try to heckle them.
Oh, for sure.
And that's effective if that's the kind of comic you are. When you're trying to do things, the godly way and be a decent individual, you have to take other roads. I only had to humiliate one person when I was on stage. Out of all the times I've had to deal with a heckler, I actually humiliated a person one time, but I did not let my emotions take me to a negative place. I stayed high. The guy actually charged the stage, and I stayed high, and I said, "Everybody, it's okay. It's okay. It's all good. He's just excited. We're going to go chase Pokemon after the show. It's okay." And everybody started laughing. But he was embarrassed, and I didn't have to be nasty,
Yeah, no, and you don't have to be nasty.
And he muttered. He muttered all the way back to his chair. He didn't like it, but I didn't go to a negative place, And so it's an art form. What is your worst bombing experience, Jack?
Oh man, so when probably a year and a half into comedy, my friend Hillary started taking over the booking. She wanted to start booking things, so this guy asked her to book comedians.
Yeah.
In between bands at a heavy metal festival.
Oh boy, tough. Always tough.
So it's probably not our crowd.
Yeah.
And then it's also we're on stage while they're breaking down stuff. So I had to be there with her all night. So she put me on last out of all our friends that were on the show. And I went up there and when I first started comedy, I would wear these super bright polo shirts, like neon yellow, neon green, neon pink, super preppy, So I go to the show like this, and I think I'm wearing a pink, like bright pink shirt, and I walk out on stage, and half the crowd had already gone back to get like drinks or something. Yeah. But half of them were there. And I literally had two guys in the front row just stand there with their middle fingers pointed at me my whole 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, and they're not like far back office. They're like right in the front, and they're visibly for everyone, and everyone's laughing, but they're laughing at them, not at me. And
yes.
And then I had to go back and do it the next night.
Oh my gosh, dude. What was it like the next night?
Well, so I'll tell you exactly what happened. I said, I have to do something. I have to do something that just tries to get their attention while I'm on stage. Yeah. So, and it's at the Marquee Theater, which is that was the main reason I wanted to do it, because that's a huge venue in Arizona.
Thanks for apologizing, Chris. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Jack. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. No, I wanted to perform there because it's the Marquee. It's a huge theater. A lot of huge bands have played there. To be on that stage was a big deal. Yeah. So I remember I went to Target and I bought some darker colored clothes because everybody was kind of dressed dark, and I just kind of wanted to blend in just a little bit better and not be so, you know what I mean? So I bought a hoodie and like a black t-shirt, and I went there, and the band that was on stage before me was doing beer bongs on stage. And now I am not a drinker per se, but I said, can you load me a beer bong when I go on stage so I can do one on stage to get these guys' attention? And it worked. I got my first applause. I think I spilled almost all of it on stage. And then they went to hating me a minute afterwards. So that's
tough right there.
It was one of the worst weekends, but also one of the best because I got to be on that stage and just try to tell jokes. But I mean, there's never been anything worse than that. I remember I just felt like I wanted to throw up the whole time. And then I mean, it's like anything. Once you do something once and you know you have to do it the second time, the next day, it's the worst feeling. Like you're just like, you already know how bad it's going to be, and nothing, no matter what you do, it's going to be awful. And that's just kind of how I felt. And that's been the worst by far.
I think I've heard more horror stories of bombing when you're an opener for a band than any other time. I mean, I think that may be the toughest gig in the comedy business, is opening up for a rock group or a rap group or whatever the musical concert is, because they do not want to see a comedian. I don't know if you've ever met Bob Smiley or not. Bob Smiley, very good Christian comedian. This guy opened up for some of the top, and we're talking about Jack. We're talking about Christian bands, dude. This guy has opened up for some of the top Christian bands in the country, and they're brutal. He's had so many bombing experiences in those crowds. They don't want to see a comic. And so when you go out there, I had one friend open up for a rap group, and he came out there. His first joke worked, actually. So he got it in his mind. Oh, I got him now. I got him right where I wanted. And every joke he told after that fell right off the table, and he bombed tremendously. And the only way he could get out of the venue was to walk through the crowd.
Oh, that's the worst. That's the worst.
And he said, as he was walking out, he heard these two girls go, "He was terrible. Oh, he was so bad." He heard these girls talking. He said, dude, it was so bad. Not only did it take a while for him to get over it, he had to get therapy for it.
Oh my! I mean, yeah, man, it's hard. I couldn't. Yeah, that sounds awful.
Experience can be pretty bad.
Yeah, and it's such a weird thing too. Confidence in comedy.
And, you know, I kind of wanted.
Oh, go ahead. I'm losing you.
Go ahead, Jack. I'm sorry I interrupted you there.
No, I was just saying confidence is a weird thing, because you said he got confident after that first joke, and it's such a weird thing in comedy, because whenever I'm the most confident is when I do the worst on stage. But you have to show that you're confident, and then also not be confident at the same time, because I need that sometimes I just need that stress right before I go on stage. I need the anxiety, and the anxiety makes me just be the better character I need to be on stage. So it's just a weird thing, confidence in comedy, because it works both.
It does. It works both ways. The thing about the anxiety, I think there's a certain level. I don't know if you get this feeling or not, but there's a certain level of adrenaline that you get. That it's nervous energy, but it's also exhilarating too. Like it's like great. I mean, it's an awesome feeling of exhilaration coupled with the anxiety. But the override of adrenaline and exhilaration is what powers you up to the stage to go let it rip.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like, man, you're just loving this. But getting overconfident is something that you don't ever want to do as a comic, because then you're done.
100%.
You're done.
100%. Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's a reality check when you do it too. When you have that first show, it's just like, oh, the first show is great. I don't even need to watch the people come in and see what the crowd's like. I don't need to watch the host, because I got this. And then
you're done. You're done, because that when you feel like you've got this, that anxiety and exhilaration, adrenaline rush is really not there.
No,
it's kind of like, oh, I got this. So now you get this superior position or posture, which the crowds can sniff out, and they're not giving you nothing. And so you got to be careful about that. But I wanted to kind of set up this next question with what we've been discussing. You have a vlog that you do, and one vlog that I saw in particular that I really liked was one with your son, and you were talking about failure. And I thought that was pretty darn awesome. Tell us a little bit about that.
So that episode you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, each week I try to touch on things that are things that I'm going through, either at this point in my life, or things that have affected me in majority of my life. And failure's been I think I'm on vlog 15, and I think on at least 8 of them, at the end, I realized that everything is based off of my fear of failure. Everything. It's like everything kind of ties back into that one thing. And and I guess I saw my dad be afraid to do things a lot in his life, and then I just saw myself do the exact same things, most of it, because I wanted to be a country singer for a long time. I wanted to do all these different things, and I never really tried them because I got so comfortable with just being okay with failing or not trying.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring my son in on this video because I don't want him to ever feel that. I want him to understand that failure is the most necessary thing that's going to happen in his life.
Right.
And
right.
And I want him to not be comfortable with it, but be okay with it, which is such a weird. It's another, one of those other things in life where you have to be okay with it, but you also can't be comfortable with it because you have to want to get better and to fix it. And I want him, and I wanted to hear what he said. And I sat down with him at the before we recorded. He was sitting next to me in front of the camera, and I said, "I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and I want you just to answer it how you think you should answer it." He didn't watch any other vlog. He didn't watch me film anything else. And I got just a great response out of him. Okay. And I think it was genuine. And I think a lot of kids would tell you that same thing. I worked with kids my whole life. I think a lot of kids have the ability to be okay with failure. It's just what the world tells you failure is yeah. We become to think of it. And I just wanted to talk about failure because right now I think a lot of people are feeling like failures, and that's not their fault.
Well, it's not, and I love the fact that you did it with your son. I love the father-son exchange, and we live in a time when young people are feeling. I don't know that I've ever seen so many depressed young people before in my life, and yes. and this is an issue in America. The youth of America is really having a tough time. And they struggle with depression, and unfortunately, a lot of times it ends up in the committal of suicide. And so to see you deal with that with your son, I thought was quite uplifting and inspiring. And your son, Jack, is going to benefit tremendously from the way that you cultivate your son's perception and of life and his own inner confidence. You can just see it in the video. And folks, I highly advise you to check out Jack Galvin's vlog, this one in which I speak of, and all of the other vlogs. But it's a great story, Jack. The way you and your son address failure. It's awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's hard for kids. I mean, it's out in the open. I mean, now when you failure used to be somewhat of a personal thing where you could take home and work on it yourself. Now it's just out in the limelight. I mean, people are failing in front of people, and it's got to be harder. It's got to be so much harder.
Well, when we were growing up, I mean, I'm 56, Jack. So when I was growing up, I'm from the era where they would say, just put some dirt on it. Yeah. So we internalized a lot of things because we weren't allowed to show pain or express fear and anxiety. We were, if you were a young boy growing up, your dad was expecting you to be a tough guy in every situation, so you weren't allowed to have feelings, as it were. So, in this society, parents are more likely to, talk about it and get our kids to kind of, express their emotions and so forth. Got a lot of old guys out there that are still internalizing a lot of things. It's in some cases there's no getting. I mean, you get to a point where it's like, well, you're probably never going to get over that. But that's why I'm so glad Jesus Christ died for me, because I can take it to the altar. And you want kids to not have to take that to the altar.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more.
Let me go back to your real quick. I want to my last question on the tough experiences on stage with the bombing and everything. Do you get over that stuff immediately, brush it off, or does it take you a few days to get over it?
Oh man, I would love to sit here and say that I get over it immediately, but I am a very,
Okay.
I'm a
Yeah.
very, I'm a very sensitive person. I
Yeah.
no, I don't usually get over it right away. I wish I could say that. I mean, I guess as the longer I did it, and the more times I did it, yeah, maybe there wasn't a sense of I'm never going to be able to make it at this and stuff like that I used to say in the beginning. I mean, I maybe don't say that, but no, I mean, I take it personally, and it usually takes me another good show until I feel better. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd love to sit here and say I'm Mr. Tough Guy, but
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
But I think it's also that thing. It's the Michael Jordan thing. It's the edge, and I think as long as if you can do it in a positive way, it's okay to be upset and to be angry or to want to be better.
Yeah.
It has to be somewhat positive. It can't be done
Yeah.
out of negative. So no, it takes me usually to another good show, just to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you've ever watched the show Blackish or not with Anthony Anderson, but Anthony he's a stand-up comic, and he's been in a lot of good comedies too. Martin Lawrence, it was in what was it, Big Mama's House. He was in that one. He's been in a lot of funny stuff. Anyway, he started out years ago in Los Angeles, and he had a comedy open mic. I mean, great guys now that were starting out, like Jamie Foxx. Believe it or not, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson started out with comedy as well. It's a lot of big names, Steve Harvey, and going on. But so what he decided to do was to heckle everybody that went on stage, and everybody thought it was a scream. I mean, he was killing the audience as a heckler, but he was also on the list. So he tried to talk himself out of going up by saying, well, I've already killed. But something told him, you know what? I think I better go on up here anyway, right, Jack? So on his way up, the entire place starts heckling him, right?
Of course.
I mean, the whole place is giving it to him. And when he gets up to the mic, they even cut the lights out, dude. And they just gave it to him, man. It was one of the most horrific experiences, I think, in Anthony Anderson's career. And it was so bad, Jack, when he got off stage, he went to the bathroom and he was just shaking uncontrollably, right? And a veteran comic walks into the bathroom and taps him on his shoulder and said, dude, it's going to be okay. Just don't ever forget what happened tonight.
Yeah.
But shake it off and you'll be okay. So I said that to say it's a learning experience. It's so many things to learn about stand-up comedy. And oftentimes they're painful or uncomfortable. And the only way you can stay in it, you gotta love it. Dude, you just gotta love it.
You have to love however much time you're on stage. That has to be so great that you'll be able to deal with everything else that comes with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had another buddy. He was on stage. He was bobbing and he was looking at one of his best friends, and he looked at the facial expression on his friend's face, and he said it looked as though my friend was witnessing an execution.
That's the worst. Yeah, that's the worst.
He said, man, when it was over, he jumped off stage and he sprinted to the bathroom and bawled his eyes out. Oh, and another comic came in, a veteran, said, look, dude, I don't worry. I'm going to give you some options and some ideas of how to get out of those situations. So it's just a difficult deal, and it's always something to learn from it. It makes you not only a better comic, it makes you a better human being.
Oh, 100%. Oh my gosh. So much better because you appreciate things more.
You do.
You
do.
Everything.
Now you're involved with Broken Drift Productions, Jack. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Broken Drift Productions is something that we started probably like 3 years ago. Our main thing that we did originally was we did the Big Pine Comedy Festival, which is in Flagstaff, Arizona, in September. We've run that for 4 years now.
Okay.
And then we were also going to do other things. We did the Cactus Comedy Classic was another production we were going to do that actually never happened because COVID. It was supposed to be in April.
COVID-19 strikes again.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. And then 40 for 40 with the club at Laughs Unlimited in Sacramento. We were going to do a festival, which we ended up doing, but we didn't go. So a lot of what we do is we are event production for festivals. People have hired us to do festivals. We actually worked at the San Diego Comedy Festival and ran that for them for 1 year. We don't anymore, but that was actually at the venue where I met you at the Comedy Palace.
Yes.
We've run that. And then a big thing we're doing right now is really trying to push our YouTube, which is Broken Drift Productions, that is where my vlog is posted on Tuesdays. And then we also have a bunch of other platforms with other comedians that we work with. We work with 40-ish comedians all over the country. We do weekly performer highlights. So we do a little video on different performers that we work with that we make.
Okay.
Different shows. Anything that can be involved in production, that's what we do with Broken Drift. I am mainly a content creator for Broken Drift. That is my main goal, is to think of things to either film with the boys, because we also involve the boys in this. Hillary's got 2 sons. They call themselves the Banana Bros.
Okay.
And my son is involved with that too. So we do a lot of sketches.
Nice.
Since
Nice.
Not everything that we do with Broken Drift is family friendly, but pretty much everything I do with Broken Drift, I do a lot of stuff with the boys, and then my vlog is obviously 100% family friendly. Yeah, it's just a group of us. There's probably about 10 of us involved, and we have some big things in the work that I can't talk about yet, but we have some huge things coming soon.
Oh, awesome, man. Can't wait to hear more about that. Jack, tell us why you perform as a clean comedian.
I just, I know there's always that thing in the beginning where comics are like, am I going to go clean so I can get on TV, or am I going to just be who I am? Well, I just wanted to be who I was, and that's who I was. I was a teacher for 11 years. I was someone that I'd have a conversation with someone, and because I was around kids so much, they'd be like, I'm an adult. You can talk to me like an adult. And I'd be like, well, I'm just so used to it. So it was always, that's where I learned how to be funny, really, was working with these kids and get their attention. And when you're a PE teacher, you get all the kids for 30 minutes a day, back and forth. In that 30 minutes, they're excited to be inside. They don't want to listen to me, so I have to get their attention. So being funny was the way I did it, and that just naturally came clean to me. And I just, like I said earlier, I don't want anyone to ever leave a show that I was at and say that guy made me feel bad. And because that's the exact opposite of what I've wanted to do. So it wasn't even really a choice. It was just, I was just being who I was.
Yeah, and I love that answer, man. I think and that's how I worked in the school system for 6 years in Alexandria, Virginia, and quite frankly and honestly, that's how I learned how to deal with hecklers. Especially the middle school kids. I've taught kids from the 1st grade through the 12th, but the middle school kids, dude, that's just another level right there. It's just. They're probably the most restless bunch of kids I've ever seen in my life, dude. And you learn a lot, by dealing with them. You learn a lot. So I'm with you on that. And so that would definitely help you to maintain a certain level of decency. I mean, you're talking about dealing with kids, and if you enjoy kids, if you love kids, you want to make them laugh, and you're there to teach them and set an example for them. So I can definitely see how you've brought that posture to the stage. How long, Jack, did it take you well, first of all, how long have you been doing stand-up? About 12 years?
No, almost 7.
7. So,
7. I started a little late.
do you think you have established?
Hmm?
Do you think you found your voice in comedy, or are you still kind of tinkering around with it, or you're pretty good with the way that you have established your voice?
Um, I think I was getting close. I
Okay.
still don't think I was 100% there. I'm just going to try to be as honest as possible. I think I was getting there, and I don't know if this break is going to be a huge drop off from that, but I think I was
Yeah.
getting close to it.
Yeah.
I was definitely getting to the point where I was writing things that were definitely in the voice that I was portraying on stage.
Okay.
So yes, I think I was getting there, but I don't think I was there though. To be honest, I don't think I was
Okay.
there yet.
Gotcha. And I'll tell you, I think the 5 right around where you actually find your voice. That's about the time. There are a few people that are kind of like freaks of nature, and like a year and a half they got it.
Yeah.
But no one ever walks on stage and they got it. Even Chris Rock was a guy who started out killing, and then all of a sudden he started bombing because he thought he could show up and kill, and he learned, oh no, I have to write. I have to write and write and write and write and write, and there are a lot of things I have to learn about this business. So there's just, everybody has a point where they go, okay, who am I going to be? And I'm with you. I mean, heading towards the end of 2019, I started to really hit a groove and rhythm that I kind of liked and thought that I could fly with. And I thought, oh my gosh, here, I can't believe to do. But I've actually had, doing what I'm doing right now, in the back of my head for the longest time. I would go to shows, I would do interviews with comics, record their set, then I would go do my set, and it just became too much. You know, it just became too much, and I just put it on the back burner and just started doing comedy only. And now I have nothing but time to focus on this show.
Yeah, of course.
So it's been positive in that sense. It's not been all bad. It's actually been positive from this particular standpoint. Now, when you're battling with nerves, Jack, how do you deal with that before you go up?
Before I go on stage, I mean,
yeah, how do you deal with nervousness and butterflies?
I mean, I'm definitely the type of person that has to, before I go on stage, I can't, like, I like to listen to the room when the comedian in front of me is on, just to get a feel for what's happening and just kind of see where everybody's at and who's laughing, who's not laughing, who's talking. But I have to go outside for at least 5 minutes before I go on stage and kind of regroup, because I mean, they're there. I mean, they're there. I like to run through my set in my car on the way there. And go through everything. I'm weirdly a guy who doesn't write down things because I'm a terrible speller and terrible writer. So I've never really written a lot of my jokes down, but I like to go. I have to go through my set. I have to look at the room before I'm on stage. Unless I'm hosting, then I don't really get a feel for it. But there's definitely 3 things that I have to check off my list, which is going over my set in the car, watching the room, and if I'm hosting, watching people just walk into the room and seeing what their vibe's like, then taking 5 minutes and then going on stage. And then once I'm on stage, once I get the first few words out, the butterflies are gone.
Yeah. What's the biggest thing you've learned in 7 years, Jack, about comedy that's made you a better comic?
Early on, it was nobody cares that you bombed. The only person that cares that you bombed is you, and that's because nobody knows who you are. So no one's losing. If the show stinks, if the all-around show stinks, the only person that they're talking about at home is the headliner. They're not talking about you. It's just a moment. Yeah. And that was the biggest thing in the beginning, was to know that my career wasn't going to be over because of one bad show. And I remember being like, there's no career to end. So just stop worrying about it. And then it was just, and then the big thing was I'm a storyteller, and I like to tell stories, and it was very difficult for me to understand that I needed to start my shows off with not a story. And I used to fight.
Right.
I used to fight people on that a lot in the beginning and be like, but I'm a storyteller. And they're like, I know, but just come out with a couple jokes about yourself real quick in the beginning to get them going. And
exactly.
I did that. Once I did that, it made my set so much better that, because usually the first 2.5 minutes now is just maybe like 6 quick jokes about myself that ease me into everything else. And that was a huge thing, because I was like, I'm not going to buckle to what you say. I'm a storyteller. And it's like, no, there's an art form to this. And if you do it right, you'll be able to do what you want. And that was a big step, because I fought it, because I thought I was funny, and I would do contests and I would never get past the first round in a lot of them. And the guys be like, you told one joke. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a storyteller. He's like, I know, but I need to see more.
Okay. Now I hear you, man. And great lesson. Chris Rossetti said, did your dad ever get to see you perform?
He did not. No, I started 8 months after he passed away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a rough one. That's one that'll always get me a little bit, but I know he's watching. So.
Yes, he is. That's for sure, Jack. That is for sure. What advice would you offer young comedians that are just starting out in comedy?
Just starting out, commit. If you really love this and this is something you want to do, commit your life to it if you can. And if you don't have for me, it was difficult because I had a kid already when I started comedy. There's a lot of things that I love my son. I love my time with him. So it's just commit to it. Go out there and work and be fearless. If you can be fearless at this in this profession, you will do great things. But just know that you're going to have to work your butt off, and you're going to have to be gone a lot, and you're going to have to deal with a lot of people. So just put your head down and work hard. And if you do that, you'll make it.
And as you put your head down, also keep it down in humility, because arrogance will not get it done in comedy. You have to be humble.
And working on the other side of it, where I'm in charge of festivals and in charge of things, be nice to everyone.
Yeah.
Because we all everybody in the business kind of works together. So if you get a bad reputation for being difficult, people will hear about it, and it'll make this job a lot harder.
It'll make it a lot harder. And and in this business, unfortunately, you get a lot of angstians and show producers and so forth, and they're going to pay for it too down the road because of what you just said. I mean, people don't forget those things. You know, they don't forget the nastiness and vitriol that you dumped on them. I mean, and it happens in this business, comedy, dude. It happens a lot. So great advice for young comedians. Work hard, commit to it. It's a lot of writing that you got to do. You got to get up there on stage, depending on where you are in life, have children, and all these different things. As long as you have a support system at home that is with you, or if you're single, you got all the more reason to. If you're young and single,
100%.
Hey, if you want this, like you said, commit to it. If you really want it, you got to commit to this and just go for it and get on stage as many times as you can, write as many times as you can, learn from the bombings, take note of why it went bad. Why did this go wrong tonight? Analyze that. Look at that horrible video, as excruciating as it may be, and what went wrong, and get up there again and again and again and again, and then eventually, you'll be great at it. I mean, Kevin Hart has a story very similar to that. He bombed a number of times, but he put in his dues for 11 to 13 years before he blew up. It's a game that you've got to give your full commitment to, Jack. I like the fact that you mentioned that, because that is something that young comics need to know.
100%. And also just to add, you can't just do stand-up anymore. can't just do stand up. You got to do a podcast. You got to do something on YouTube. You got to really dive into social media, which is something I'm still trying to get better at.
One thing that I haven't done, which I think will stretch you as a comedian, is sketch comedy. I go to a lot of comedy shows, and the first half of the night will be comedy improv, and then the stand-ups go up and do their open mic. And I've looked at it, and I'm like, man, that looks really difficult. I don't know how they do that stuff. They make stuff up right there on the spot, you know.
Improv was the first thing.
A lot of times they think that it's the toughest thing in the world to do. But to me, that is really difficult. But it would expand you as a stand-up if you tried it.
I did improv for 2 years. And lead of a troupe. I mean, improv is one of, I think, a tool that everybody in stand-up could use. And it's such a great art form too.
It is. Do you have any comedy heroes, Jack?
Comedy heroes. Well, I mean, when I was younger, I definitely didn't watch as much stand-up as some people that get into stand-up do. But Rodney Dangerfield was my dad's favorite. And I remember watching movies with Rodney and watching stand-up with him. But once I got really into comedy, I love Mike Birbiglia. He is one of my favorites. I love his one-man shows. I love emotion. I try to implement emotion in a lot of things I do. And I love watching Mike Birbiglia because you could cry and then you could laugh and then you could be mad and you could have all these feelings. And I love that. And then, but probably Rodney and then I love Nate Bargatze. He's one of my favorite comics out right now. I absolutely love Nate. And I've been asked this question a lot, and I usually don't I don't give the response that most people want. But I just didn't watch a lot of comedy as a kid, so there's no one from back then that really inspired me.
Now, Mike Birbiglia, who's from DC, and as I am based in DC myself, and I do all my comedy by and large done in DC. Mm-hmm. And Birbiglia, he did something really wild, dude, to kind of catapult his career. What he did was he orchestrated his own special. He got a room, filled it with 200 people. He got the cameras in there, so forth and so on, shot it. And I think I want to say Netflix picked it up. Yeah. And he took a big time chance at it. But it goes back to what you said about commitment. What are you willing to do to make it in this business?
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
and long shot chances like that, and make it work. And I really admire him, and it benefited him tremendously. Now Birbiglia, has made it. He did his own. He produced his own film about 6 or 7 years ago. I don't know if you remember it or not, but it had Michael Keegan Key from Key and Peele in that film. And I think it was about sketch comedy too. Do you know the film I'm referring to?
It was about improv. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was strictly about an improv group, and one of the guys gets picked up for like an SNL kind of thing. But I love it. I've seen it probably 7 times.
Yeah. It was a great film. It was great. Yeah. And Michael Keegan Key about stand-up. He and his buddy were invited to do a show out in Los Angeles, and with all these stand-up comedians. Well, they're sketch comics. So they're there, and Ari Spears is coming off stage after killing. So like 15,000 people in this arena. And he comes off stage, goes, "You two guys are going up there together? Good luck." Right? And so Key's like, "Oh, well, we're Key and Peele. They got to love us, right?" They get out there, dude. And he said it didn't take them 15 seconds. Out of 15,000 people, a whole section of 800 or 900 people started cascading booze down upon them, right? He said they were supposed to do 20 minutes, and they only lasted 9. They were booed off the stage. And he said the reason is because we're not stand-up comics. So fans, long story short, can smell that whether or not you know what you're doing as a stand-up comedian.
Oh, 100%.
It's a craft that you have to study and learn. And I said, going back to what you said about commitment, the commitment to learning crowds and moods and lighting and acoustics and demographics. It's so many facets to stand-up comedy, and you got to be a student. If you think you just show up and kill in comedy, you're sadly mistaken. It doesn't work. An interesting story by Michael Keegan Key.
No, that's a crazy story, and that's why I tell. And you were saying you got to keep learning. I used to tell comics when I used to be the booker at the House of Comedy, and I would tell. I was like, Rick lets you come into here to watch free shows as long as there's open seating. I said, new comics should be in here watching the headliner perform as much as possible. And you shouldn't come on a Friday sold out show. You should come in on a Thursday or a Sunday light show when they have to actually go up there and work. And they have to like try even harder than they usually do. I'm like, that's what you should watch because that's going to make you better.
Yes, it's definitely going to make you better. Well, this has been a great convo, Jack. I really appreciate you being on the show, man. Like I said, it was great meeting you out there in San Diego. That was a great experience for me. Like you, I will never forget that experience out there. I met so many quality, solid people in the business for which I'm grateful for having the opportunity to meet Maria Herman and Jimmy Brogan and Char Prunier, Charlene May, and Brian April. I mean, so many quality people out there Scott Wood. You know, I've had Scott on the show, and he's wildly hilarious, a great, clean comic.
Mr. One.
And it's just, yes. It's Jack, how can fans follow you on social media or even contact you for booking?
You can find me on all my platforms are The Real Jack Galvin. That's on Instagram, Facebook. That's my website. I'd also love to plug the Big Pine Comedy Festival, which you can find on Instagram and Facebook as well. And then Broken Drift Productions, which is right now with not being able to do stand-up, that's my main focus is building our YouTube page and my vlogs. So I'd love you to go to the Broken Drift YouTube page and productions and give us a follow. And that's all my stuff.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, the very talented and funny, all the way live from San Diego, not Arizona today, but usually in Arizona. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with Jack Galvin. Jack, thank you so much for being on the show, man. May the peace of Christ be with you and your family, bro.
Bless you. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me on.